Purdy.com.
I'm glad no one else on earth has my name.
Yeah, that's right.
Because I can't hide from anything.
Yeah, so if you become a congressman and
I can just blame my dad, I guess.
You search for me, you're getting me.
you're good.
By phone.
Hello, once again, it's in pod form. This is our 5th episode, and as you can see, big things, or as you can hear, I should say, big things are popping at IPF, because now we have theme music, which was done by my brother, John DeZeki, so thank you to him for that.
Big ups to him.
Big ups. It was either going to be that or Broken Wings by Mr. Mister, but we couldn't get the rights. And we also have a guest this week, don't we, Kevin? Once again, I'm Phil DeZeki. This is Kevin Purdy.
I'm Kevin Purdy, and joining us this week is, in Buffalo, by the way, which is 43 degrees overcast, is Donnie Burtless, the proprietor, main writer, and the host of Buffalo Eats, a food blog in Buffalo that basically is the first blog on the scene. Anytime a new restaurant opens, other things. Donnie, introduce yourself.
Thanks, Kevin. I don't think I've ever had such a nice introduction before.
He's good at those.
I've basically been doing buffaloeats.org for about 2+ years now, and me and my wife kind of like to eat, and we've just been writing it up, and we've expanded to doing interviews with local celebrities, and we even started a little web series with Buffalo News over here, so it's been pretty sweet.
So we're going to talk about, if you're concerned that this is going to be a little too Buffalo-centric, I don't believe so. We're going to get into that, of course, we have to, but it's going to be more about food on the web, and then just kind of offshoots of that, whatever we want to talk about food-wise. We got a food guy here. We're going to talk about food.
That's right.
That's how we're going to do it. And when we were first thinking about this show, one of the things I thought about, I think, before this show even really came into our heads of doing it this way, is that I wanted to do something about food talk on the web, and kind of more importantly, kind of independent food blogs and things like that based in different cities. Because, when you go to a new city, where do you look to find what's good? If it's New York or San Francisco or Chicago, it should be pretty easy. But what about basically anything outside of the 6 or 8 biggest food cities in the country becomes a little tougher? Do you go to Urban Spoon, Chowhound, Yelp? Are those your options? Maybe. In some cities, there are some better options. I think in Buffalo, I think we're actually pretty lucky for the size of the city, some of the stuff that we have.
Yeah, we have a good portion of food bloggers. We have Bill Rappaport's Restaurant Guide, which is just this amazing nonprofit gift from a Buffalo computer science professor who put together a guide like 25 years ago because he had all these folks visiting from out of town, and he wanted to create a list just to say where to send them in town, and it became this online, very computer science-y, database-y guide, and he would compile newspaper reviews. He had like kind of secret initials-only friends who would email him reviews, stuff like that.
It's not always easy to read, but at least it's something. And I think if every city at least had that or something like it, we'd probably be better off, but not the case.
I think the most interesting thing is that, and Don can speak to this a little bit, is that the local alternative weeklies and the newspapers used to kind of hold a monopoly on the restaurant knowledge in a town, and unless it was like Phil was saying, like a big city, and you had a Scott guide or a Michelin guide. In smaller towns where very few of the restaurants are going to have that kind of national push. It used to be the newspaper, the Alt Weekly, and now there's so many more sources. Don, why did you start Buffalo Eats?
I guess I kind of started it because I didn't know if Buffalo had a big presence of food reviews outside of Buffalo News and like local online sites. And I kind of wanted to find out where different food was. Like, I knew everywhere that had good wings and things like that just from living here, but there was nobody that was talking about Vietnamese food or Korean food or things like that. Something that I was starting to get interested in is wanting to try to eat anything I possibly could. And I actually stumbled across Urban Spoon almost on accident. Well, actually, it was because of the iPhone commercial that showed the little slot machine type thing. Yeah. And and they have a section on Urban Spoon where bloggers can add their posts to restaurant pages. And literally, that's probably where 50% of my initial traffic was people who were going to these restaurant pages and then seeing a post that I had about it. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, it's been a great tool for me because I know a lot of people who are looking at Buffalo and doing Google searches find my site because of that.
Yeah.
But the problem with Buffalo and their blogging scene is that a lot of people get into it, but nobody stays around that long.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who do it originally for.
Are you committed to it for the long term?
Well, I mean, I have to now. Like, I feel like there's like that 3 month where that 3 month phase where if I get past that third month and I'm still doing it regularly, then I've crossed that path. That I'm sold into this now. But I've seen people come and go who've written a lot of things in a very short period of time, but then financial constraints, time constraints. I mean, really, most of the bloggers.
Why anybody abandons blogs, really?
Yeah, I mean
regardless of topic.
None of us are getting paid for it, and I mean, I think I'm seriously. Well, most of the bloggers that I've met were doing this out of a hobby, not a business. But
there are some nice side benefits to it, though. You get to go to some events, you get to go to events that are, specifically for bloggers, or you get to go to, get in with some chefs, at least meet some chefs, and then maybe you get invited to opening nights and stuff.
That's true, but luckily for me, I mean, well, the reason that started happening was because we were going at it for as long as we did. The first year, I don't think I got invited to too many events, but it was after we've been doing it for 2 years plus where I started having, I personally, I think some pretty, respectable online presence that people knew who I was, that I started getting the attention of people who had, access to that stuff. And
you work to build an audience, really, is what you're saying. Is
yeah. I mean, basically just from Twitter and Facebook. I mean, that we don't have an advertising budget or anything like that. It was basically all word of mouth at first.
That's all you need these days, right, Kevin?
Yes, that is all you need.
You don't know where to go from that.
When you're writing Buffalo reviews of local restaurants, what's in your head, and how are you splitting up in your head in terms of how much of it are you writing for, Tim Smith off the 190 who just came into Buffalo to visit his daughter at college, and how much of it, or someone new to school,
as opposed to
college
locals?
freshman, versus how much of it, how compelled do you feel to kind of give the locals what they want?
It's kind of weird. To be honest with you, I didn't read a lot of restaurant reviews or anything like that before I started it. I kind of just started doing what I felt I would want to read. And basically, I think the reason a lot of people don't try a new restaurant or don't go somewhere is because they're worried about, I don't know how nice it is. I don't know how much it's going to be. There's almost an anxiousness of what if I go there and I don't like anything, or if I feel awkward. So when I started writing the post, it was kind of to give locals an idea of what this kind of restaurant is, what you can expect to pay for it, if the service is good, things like that, as much information as I could. And then I guess the food critique, I try to just do my best as far as what I've had experiences with.
The nicest way I can put it about our local newspaper, all weeklies, maybe even the glossy magazines, is that
one of them that you might
I might write for
from
one
time
of them.
to time.
I try my best in my reviews, and others do too. But you can read, I think this is true in Buffalo and other places, you can read a review of a local restaurant, and you can finish the article, and like you said, what you said you were trying to aim at, you can end up not knowing what you should wear, how much money you should have, whether to bring cash or not. A lot of places in Buffalo, when they open up, you don't want to pay a credit carrier fee or whatever. How many people you should expect to bring, whether it's kid friendly, whether it's going to be the loudest bar on Allen Street, et cetera. So that's kind of part of the mission, I'm guessing then.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't actually half and half was a conscious effort, and it wasn't. It's kind of just what I thought people would want to know. And basically, this all started because I was the most boring eater of all time. I was the chicken finger guy.
Yeah.
Anywhere I went, just chicken sandwich. Just give me a chicken sandwich. And then my friend turned me on to, of all things, Anthony Bourdain's No Reservations. Yeah. And he kind of has that, in your face, why aren't you eating this? It's good. Everyone else eats it. And so I started getting self-conscious.
That could be the commercial for the
and,
show.
and so I just was like, all right, like I'm just going to try to eat everything I possibly can and not question it.
I think some of this is kind of, I can't say for certainty with every city, but I think the reason why, maybe why some independent sites such as your site and Bill Rappaport is more of a guide, but it has that stuff, and Buffalo Chow, which has kind of been on again, off again. Maybe this has such a presence in this city and is so important because the traditional food criticism in this city is so lacking.
I don't even think
is that fair to say?
I don't think lacking, but also if you go with the model of a newspaper or an alt weekly or a magazine that comes out once a month, once a week doesn't cut it anymore in terms of like what you want to know about. And restaurants in Buffalo, they can last 3 months. They can last 6 months. Food trucks open, and chefs change, things change, and so once a week, you only get to carve out, and it always has to be a new restaurant usually, or at least a revisit of an old restaurant. I don't think that model of, we hold the information down. We are the sole fount of information in town, and we're going to review this restaurant this week, and you'll have to wait to get to the other restaurants.
But do you agree that a lot of food criticism from many of the mainstream outlets in Buffalo is lacking?
Well, I am a purveyor of food criticism.
What about the Buffalo News? I mean, I don't know why I'm putting you. I don't know why I'm putting you on the spot. Let's ask Don about this.
Well, the thing I noticed, and is that it seems like the major publications, at least in our area, very rarely will write a discouraging review. And for better or worse, I know they don't want to maybe take away business from a place or hurt a restaurant, but the thing I love about doing my own thing and having no boss or really I don't know, ethic code that I have to adhere to is I can just write straight up exactly my experience and not worry about if something was really bad, if the service was particularly horrible, I'm just going to say it. Like I'm not going to hold behind that.
Which is obviously how it should be.
You really like Phil's a Pittsburghian, as some folks might know, or a Pittsburgh Aryan, and
yes, Pittsburgher. We can even say Pittsburgh.
A Yinzer.
I'm from Western. Yes, that's even better.
A Yinzer. You really like the Pittsburgh, the local papers there, the Post Gazette.
Yeah.
The Post Gazette's reviews, and you have often pointed them out to me as an example of what you wish you could see more often. What do you like so much about Pittsburgh as compared to other cities?
From food criticism standpoint?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, all you have to do is compare the Buffalo News reviews to the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette reviews.
Don't do that, people.
It's not, I mean, Pittsburgh is it's a bigger metro area than Buffalo, but it's, it's not New York. It's a slightly, it's actually the metro area is double the size. But that being said, the Post-Gazette isn't one of the biggest papers in the country or anything, but the food critic there is really good. Her name's China Millman. And the reviews are just really well written. You can tell she's visited, these places numerous times. They're lengthy. Just what's not to like by comparison? I suppose
they're longer online than they are in the paper, right? They actually use their online space to provide their critic more space if they need it.
Yeah, they are long, but you really kind of get a sense of a restaurant, and the ratings are tougher and things like that. So maybe that's not needed as much when you have that really strong presence in mainstream food criticism, whatever city you're in. But that gets me to another question: is, like you said, you didn't. I'm addressing Dawn now. That is, you didn't eat a lot of things going into this.
Yeah.
How do you kind of? I guess my question is, where does the ethos come from? Because someone can look at someone who, say what you will about someone's reviews. If they've been eating different types of food for, 30, 40 years, they can, put something behind that opinion. But is that something that you wrestle with, the fact that you haven't been doing this very long?
Originally when I started the blog, a lot of the criticism came from people who told me I since I don't know what I'm talking about, I shouldn't be writing anything.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a fair point. If I'm ever having a meal where I'm not extremely familiar with it, like this year we finally started trying out like Indian restaurants, and I don't have a big background obviously with Indian food, so when I write in my post like, listen, like this
I've
is
never
a
had
warning.
saag
This
with
is a
paneer
warning.
before.
No,
Yeah,
I'm not going to compare this to a tiny town, in India that might have the same thing, or with most cuisines. I mean, I've had a lot of Vietnamese, but I don't consider myself an expert. I couldn't break down like 150 checkpoint of one company or one restaurant's pho compared to another, but I just try to stay. I mean, if it's good, if it tastes good, and I think going into it that, I mean, I'm not the pickiest of eaters. It takes a lot for something to really upset me, but if the food I think is just good, prepared fresh, taste, in general. I mean, I try not to stick away from this is how it should have tasted and this is what they gave, which I know.
Yeah.
I mean, like a website like Buffalo Chow, when it existed, the writer of that was way more knowledgeable of food. He traveled the world. He'd had more things. He could compare it to things like that. But that's, I guess, not what I'm going for. I'm appealing to somebody who's like, oh, I've always wanted to try Indian.
Yes.
I'm like, this is what you can have.
Kind of
I
a different
liked it.
audience.
Yeah.
But I think what comes across is you're very good natured about it, and just the fact that there's passion in that. I think that's what people want. The more passionate food blogs about your city, if you're into food, the better.
Phil and I got into a discussion, and I tried to cut it off so we could save it for the show a little bit, about basically about the portions at restaurants, and how if you're reviewing food in a town that's basically not New York, Chicago, or LA, where in some cases, if you're going to like a 3-star restaurant in Midtown Manhattan, if it's like buying a yacht. If you have to ask, you probably can't afford to go there. In towns like Buffalo, probably Pittsburgh, other towns, I think some ways it's funny how value is sometimes addressed, or sometimes you'll see reviews where it says, oh, this is a $2 sign restaurant as opposed to a $4. Like that's how Yelp and other places do it. Yeah, when I look at Urban Spin, I have no idea what that means. I mean, like, a $4 Mexican restaurant to me is about the same as a $1 sign steakhouse. If you're just going to use an arbitrary, this is expensive for
And
what it
$4
is.
Mexican restaurants can be so good.
Right, like Bayless's restaurants in Chicago are amazing. But yeah, so in smaller towns, I often wonder if we should be reviewing for value, and whether portion size comes into that. And I guess I wanted to ask you, Don, is when you're eating food at like a local restaurant, you're trying to write it up for the blog, how much does that play into it? Are you happy with a small portion of pretty good food, or do you want to inform people of how much they're getting for their dollar, and one over how much it costs, or how much you should get for that?
I mean, I think it's important that I address kind of like anyone who's going to read the article. I mean, if it's something that it's noticeably small amount of food, like, I mean, for the most part, most restaurants here, if you're going to order an entree or something like that, you're expecting to be full afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, it's only been recently when...
Full. You're saying full as opposed to just satiated.
Yeah. I'm saying like you...
Are you expecting to take home part of this portion?
Yeah. But except for in recent... I mean, I'd say even this last year where there's been more restaurants being added to the area that actually cater to less food.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the big thing is this worth the money? Is having a macaroon, a French macaroon that will literally be a bite?
Yeah.
Is that worth $2.50 to somebody, and things like that?
And it's
Yes.
the quality
And the answer
versus
is yes.
the quality versus quantity balance is a lot different in a city that does not have that much.
Exactly, and especially a lot of these cuisines are new. I mean, literally, we just got a woman who's providing French macaroons to the area, and that just happened, I think, last year or the year before. So, I mean, people aren't aware of... I mean, I don't want to generalize, but I think a lot of people in Buffalo aren't aware of some cuisines and how small the portions are, but they don't realize how much work goes into each little thing.
Here's my thing with macaroons. I got to get into this really briefly. Because
Okay,
they're the sandwich macaroons, and then they're the other kind.
Yeah, there's the coconut.
Yeah, let's just spell them differently. Let's agree. Well, not always, though. Not always.
If they're not spelled differently, it's incorrect.
And they should be.
French macaroons are one
O, and then
the
there's a
other
double
ones that you'd find at
O. I know.
the coconut ones.
But it's been
those are
confusing.
2 O's.
Okay, so we'll release that as a separate podcast called Phil on Macaroons. It'll have its own feed burner feed and everything.
Go ahead. I wanted to say something, though.
No, I was going to say the most striking example to me is 2 or 3 different places that have opened in our area in the last year, and probably other areas too. It seems like it's a trend. Neapolitan pizza, with the very, very thin double O semolina flour crust, and just a few blobs of mozzarella, a basil leaf or 2, and
More traditional Italian
and
pizza.
if it's really high quality ingredients, that's how they sell them in other in Italy and in other towns where it's a big deal. And if you're from I want to say Buffalo, but man, Syracuse, where I grew up,
Could be anywhere. It could be
anywhere.
most of the
you
country.
were used to getting a pizza for the same amount of money. That is like I'm having guys over for the boxing match, so I'm going to get this pizza, and the crust is going to be so thick that you could tear it off the pizza.
2 pounds of cheese.
You could hit your dog with it, and your dog would know that they've done something wrong.
which is great sometimes,
for
but
beating your dog.
there should be a place for both.
Yeah, but
both types of pizza in the city, in all cities.
But it also puts a higher expectation on that Neapolitan pizza, and some.
I mean, and that's kind of the thing that we try to, or I rather try to address is explaining the best that I can why. Okay, if somebody sees a new pizzeria open in Buffalo and they're not familiar with Neapolitan pizza, I have to kind of explain okay, you're not getting ripped off. It's really a pizza for probably one person if you're really hungry, and
it is.
Yeah.
And I'm really hungry.
But I mean, I think that's kind of with foodie culture in general. I think across the United States, kind of increasing over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
You're seeing more and more people interested in trying different things, trying foods with higher quality ingredients. Thing is that, I mean, for God's sake,
local stuff, organic stuff.
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
only a good thing, and it can't hurt us as a country to maybe eat a little
listen,
less.
if it's on an episode of The Simpsons, a full episode about foodies, then I think it's in.
It's popular.
It's popular.
I wanted to mention because, to be honest, I don't know why I didn't even think about this until we were talking about it. But we've all done food criticism because I used to write food reviews, and before I don't want to get into this too much but it goes. Don reminded me of it when he talked about. Actually, maybe one of you guys talked about advertising real briefly about how advertising. I think it was Don. How it not necessarily affect a review, but maybe it plays some role in.
I'll come out and
who's
say
getting
that
reviewed.
I could never write. I think the worst review I ever wrote when I did food reviews for the Niagara Gazette, just once in a while as a lark, I would do food reviews for the Niagara Gazette up here, and I think I once submitted a 1.5 out of 4 star review, and it could not go through. It literally could not go through, and I had to revise it so that it was like a 2.5 star review, and it was a place where I went for lunch, and the chef asked me if I'd called ahead, and I said no. And it took 2 hours and 15 minutes for my lunch to arrive. I don't know now what more qualification you have for a bad restaurant than it could not provide me with food I ordered in the space of 2.5 lunch breaks. But
those reviews that you did for I'm just going to say a certain company.
Okay, I already named the paper. So
okay,
yes.
But it didn't really run in the Gazette proper. It ran in a section of the Gazette. We both wrote for this. We both worked for this company, and I did food reviews after Kevin did them, and I gave someone I thought a decent review one time. I didn't think it was that bad, but there was a line that an advertiser had a huge problem with, and complaints were made, and I was told, you're either going to do these nice or you're not going to do them at all. And I said, we're not doing them at all. That was my...
Is the advertiser the place you reviewed or no?
Yes. Yeah, they had a big...
This is the most cut and dry example in media criticism I've ever heard.
Well...
Usually it's implied and,
Well, I mean, it just makes me wonder for certain things. When we started talking about anything related to advertising, and it really took a lot out of me as far as a lot of things the newspaper business goes, just a lot of things, but it doesn't speak to the whole newspaper business in general because not everywhere is like that. And when you write for, I have to understand that when you write for a smaller paper, if you are going to do food reviews, something like that could happen, and I understand the business side of it. That being said, isn't that more of an argument for, independent food blogs? That's maybe in something like food, that's where blogs do a better job than, coverage of sports.
Well, because the
or something.
advertising comes from, and Don can speak to this a little bit more probably, but usually if you're signing up for a Google AdSense account, the ads on the side you have literally no say in. What you write will trigger certain keywords, and that will bring in kind of national advertisers. If you write a review about a local Mexican place, you might see ads on the side for Chili's or something like that. But generally, it's not great paying advertising, but at least it's advertising that the site owner literally has only a few keyword control over. I mean, I'm assuming that's kind of how it works at Buffalo Eats.
There's no ads at all. Unfortunately, the platform I use to blog, and it doesn't support JavaScript. Oh. Yeah.
But it's better almost.
I mean, the freedom I enjoy about what I do is that I literally don't have to answer to any of those questions.
Yeah. Which is great. If you get to, you've built an audience, we've said.
Yeah.
And if people trust you to a certain point, that's actually better than a lot.
I mean, I kind of, recently we had to, maybe back in March, we basically wrote down an about section, and we broke down what we do. And we differentiate from traditional restaurant reviewers for a couple of reasons. But one thing is and I know a lot of people go to a restaurant multiple times before they write the review, and we decided to just go once, but for two reasons, basically. One is that's how a normal person would experience a restaurant. If somebody went to a restaurant once and had a really bad experience, they're not going to tell themselves, all right, well, we'll go back 2 more times.
Yeah. You get one shot.
And the other one is we are funding this ourselves. we only have, our income to spend on going out to dinner and things like that. That's the downside of.
But like you said, a professional restaurant reviewer should go to visit a restaurant at least a couple times.
If they're not paying for the meal and things like that.
But if you're coming at it from the point of view of I'm just, I want something to eat, I want to try something different, when people go to different restaurants, in real life, they just give it one shot most of the time. If you have a bad experience, are you going back?
I think it's a happy medium, though, because what Don's doing and what others are doing to do kind of independent blogs and just laying it all out there what your personal code of ethics is or, what you're trying to do.
Yes.
Because
definitely.
Phil has a story in particular about a local restaurant owner creating fake reviews for their own restaurant and, loading Yelp, loading Urban Spoon.
It makes those sites almost obsolete. It makes it like you can't even trust anything that you're reading.
And there's the general problem of the 1-star, 5-star problem, which YouTube actually has in a huge degree, and they've written algorithms to fix it. Which is that you go to you go look up any reviews for anything like a resort hotel, and it's either this is the worst place ever, cockroaches ate my children, or this is the best place ever, and they sprayed me with minty oil every morning when I arose in the sunrise. It's either everything
minty oil.
Everything is amazing, or it was the worst soul-sucking experience ever. And that's a huge percentage of reviews online, because why would you go
the crowdsourcing places? None
of us ever write the IRS and say, really great job handling my taxes this year. I didn't get charged any false fees, and I wasn't arrested, and it cost about as much as I earned. So thank you very much, Internal Revenue Service, for handling my taxes in an adequate fashion. So nobody ever does that for restaurants, because if you go, you eat, and you're happy with what it is, you go home and you're like, and then someone asks you for a fish fry review, you say, yeah, you should check out, Papa Jake's or whatever. So I think it's better to have independent folks doing it. I think just on the whole, in general, especially in towns where the newspaper is been hit so hard by Craigslist and other sources that they can't.
Or there's only one source.
So there's that problem. I don't hide my identity on our site. My full name's on there, and if you wanted to do enough, you could Google search me and find out about me, which recently has happened. But the reason we don't put numeric scores or stars on our reviews is because that's not what I want.
Yeah.
I don't want somebody to just skim it to see what number I gave it.
Yeah.
I want them to read the entire thing, because I generally like we'll have different opinions on all the different facets of the meal. The place was nice, if our service was horrible, but the food was really good. Like I want them to read that whole thing and get an opinion of it, not just look at a number.
I like scores and grades, but I'm coming around to that a little more, I think. I mean, you could make this, I mean, really we could turn this into this is what blogs do. If you want to know more about the economy, instead of reading, a 2,000 word piece in the Wall Street Journal, which might be fine, you might go read this 20,000 word post on this economist's blog.
Yeah.
But there's a place for both.
Yeah. I mean the nice part about social media with us is we've gotten to a lot of where we go to eat actually. Like if I'm looking for a new place that is supposedly good that I haven't tried yet, I'll hit up Twitter or Facebook and be like, has anyone eaten here? Like, is there something I should be trying? That's
You're very
really good?
open about it.
Yeah. Like, what should I be doing here? Or if I check in, like using Foursquare and I tweet that location out, I'll get, a handful of people who are like, you have to order this as soon as you're there. And so it's a nice relationship. And then people, opposite will ask me like, was it good? Like, what should I be doing there? Like, if I go, should I order blah, blah, blah? And so, I mean, it's made my relationship a lot easier. I mean, it's something that a traditional restaurant reviewer would not have that type of connection with who's reading their material.
Kevin, is there something you want to add?
I wanted to point out that it's about time, unfortunately, or fortunately, for the best thing on the internet this week.
You can go first.
Phil's unhappy with my sticklerness for time.
Go ahead.
All right. So my best thing on the internet this week actually comes from the mainstream media, if you will. After Thanksgiving weekend, last week, Phil and I talked about turkey. I did eat turkey, by the way. It was Wegmans turkey, but,
Oh,
thank
don't
you,
get
Don.
into this.
Thank you. If you couldn't hear him, he just said that it was lame. Don did.
My turkey was great. Continue.
It's great. So I didn't have a lot. I was just complaining that I didn't have a lot of time to scour the internet like I usually do and pluck whatever meaning from it I can. So I actually read the New York Times this weekend, rare treat, and the New York Times Magazine had an article about can the bulldog be saved? And if you're one of those people who you read an article and at the end of it you can't believe you know so much about dog breeding now, you should read this article in the New York Times Magazine, which I'll link on the show notes, and it's about how we once had a creature in the 1860s that is called a bulldog because they used to have a sport called blood sport in the 19th century in England, and they would have these bulldogs which were low to the ground so that they could run over to a bull and bite on its nose and try to bring it to the ground, and then the bull would use its horns to try to toss the bulldog into the air, and often the owners of these bulldogs would run over and catch the dog and put it back down on the ground so it could go over and try to get the bull again. And how we've now, over generations and generations, we've bred these dogs down to the point where they are unhealthy. Just their general nature of the way we bred them is they can barely breathe. Their lifespan is about 6 to 7 years, and it's amazing. It's just one of those articles where you can't believe that you just spent an hour and a half reading about dog breeding.
Would you rather go back to the time when bulldogs?
No, I
wish they were in the shape they were in back then.
I'm just fascinated when you go from 1825 gambling on whether a dog can subdue a bull or not, and throwing pence at a young boy to collect your bet, to people in the suburbs owning them now and saying oh, Missy, she's the nicest dog on earth, and it's it goes into all these issues. You learn things about the American Kennel Club you never thought you'd learn. So
I want to read this. I haven't read this at all.
It's a really good...
I know a decent amount about dog breeding and dog breeds in general, and
your dog is a pug, which is a brachycephalic breed, by the way.
Correct.
Similar to a
bulldog.
Yes.
And a Boston Terrier, for instance.
Exactly.
But pugs were bred to be lapdogs to nobility in ancient Chinese dynasties. Kind of different from bringing down bulls. Sitting in the laps of kings, much
also,
different.
it's just fun to say the word blood sport, not in relation to Jean-Claude Van Damme. So,
but we were gonna bring it there anyway.
All right, so
I haven't seen it in a while.
The
Remember the scene where he can't see and he's looking around? He's like, "Where am I gonna?" No.
The best thing on the internet this week involves blood sport, bulldogs, and English gentry.
I will read that. My favorite thing on the internet this week. I'm gonna keep it simple. I just found out about this site I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I almost made it my best thing about the internet that week, but I didn't for some reason. But now I am. It's canistream.it, www.canistream.it. You go there, you just plug in the name of a movie, TV show, whatever you're interested in, and it will tell you if it's streaming on Netflix, Amazon, Hulu. It will tell you where you can buy it, where you can rent it. That simple. Very easy. So you know, if you have Netflix streaming like I have, you don't have to actually turn on your Netflix, go into it, you know, type it out with your controller. Just go to canistream.it. It's a great site to have. Now we're going to ask Don about his best thing on the internet this week, and I think he has one.
Mine's pretty simple, and unfortunately it's too late for anyone to enjoy right now. But it might come back, yeah. Basically, Saturday, the day after Black Friday, Foursquare teamed up with American Express.
Maroon Saturday. I don't know.
And basically they offered a deal where if you synced your American Express card with your Foursquare account, which I felt really weird about doing, if you checked into a local business and they had certain ones that marked with specials, if you spent $25, you got a $25 credit. So basically, $25 free to shop at a local, independently owned store. And I took advantage of it. Got a nice hat, and that I'm wearing right now. And I just thought it was a really cool idea, and I will gladly take free things anytime they are offered.
And we are all about local independent business here at In Pod Form.
Except for local newspapers, apparently.
No. We'll get into this on a different show.
Okay. We are actually pro newspapers.
Yes, we are. All right, I think that about sums it up. So, good show, everyone. Glad to see that a guest would actually come by.
Yes, I know.
Thank you guys very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks. That's it.
In Pod Form.